What does the First Amendment, freedom of speech, have to do with your health and ability to thrive? Everything. Let's discuss. The fact that our gut and our brain are intimately connected cannot be escaped in this conversation. Reality is, many of our chronic diseases stem from trauma. The link between disease and trauma is undeniable. Fibromyalgia, for instance, is powerfully linked to childhood trauma. Many people have dealt with the trauma and in doing so have relieved themselves from pain. And this idea of homogeny, this idea that we're all one monolith that thinks alike, that operates alike, is a fallacy. That's just not correct. Same with our guts. They're highly individual. And when I was coaching people on anti-inflammatory nutrition and lifestyle, everything fizzled down to understanding this, which is why I speak on it today. We must understand our individuality and our worth in that. And so if we're looking at this from a larger scale, not just our gut biome or not just our connection to each other in society, but if we're looking at the big picture, we can see that our individuality is vital in how we move forward as a society. One thing in our current political situation is that people don't even want to hear what the other side has to say. Everybody wants to be in a silo where everyone is agreeing with each other and they feel comfortable in that space, but we don't grow in places of comfort. The left and the right, for instance, politically in the United States, aren't necessarily going to agree, and that's great. Because what needs to happen is they need to collide and rub up against each other and forge a way forward that works for everybody. Not from a place of hate and disdain, but from a place of, okay, we're not going to necessarily agree, but what's going to work best for everybody. Thomas Sowell says it best when he says there's no right and wrong, there's only trade-off. This is Jocko Willink on Chris Williams' podcast talking about Sowell's comment.
I know that you're a fan of the Thomas Sowell quote where he says there's no solutions, only trade-offs. And this is something, in a roundabout way, that same concept is probably one of the most meaningful things I've learned this year. What does that quote mean to you? Or how have you reflected on that?
Well, especially from a leadership perspective, it's very helpful to people's mindsets, I think. And that's when I talked about that, it was primarily to help people see that you're looking for a full-on solution to this problem, and there's probably not a full-on solution that's going to satisfy every aspect of the scenario. So what you have to do instead is you have to look for what's the trade-off going to be. I'm going to win a little bit here, I'm going to lose a little bit there, but overall, it's going to move me in the right direction. I think it's a good thing to understand, as opposed to going through life thinking that you're going to find a 100% solution, because it's not going to exist.
And that's what we move towards when we dialogue with people from the other side. It doesn't have to be a place of agreement, but maybe a place of respect. Okay, understand what you're coming from. How can we move forward with both of these ideas in mind? I do get really charged about our First Amendment rights, because we need to be able to bring our own ideas forward and connect and converse so that we can grow. Just like in everything, we need to be able to become uncomfortable so that we can grow. You don't grow when you're staying safe and comfortable. And I take the fact that vital information was suppressed during COVID very seriously. As someone who grew up on prescriptions and with autoimmune disease and then self-healed through anti-inflammatory foods and through lifestyle, I knew, as many of us did, that the information that was being held from us was accurate and very important. Many of us knew and were silenced. And with the fear-mongering and censorship around COVID, one thing that it did is, through fear, it caused people to doubt the incredible chemistry sets that are our bodies. It caused people to think that we're not enough and we need this protection from science, which really was a narrative brought on by the system. And when things are not in integrity and not in alignment and they're out here, that's what brings sickness and disease and discomfort. And I'll tell you what, if it's not rooted in integrity, it cannot stand. It will not stand. And I'm so excited that today my boy RFK Jr. is getting confirmed. And I, for one, am super excited to make America healthy again. Your body is an incredible chemistry set, and you can heal through nutrition and lifestyle and the words that you use. And a big part of that is being able to express your individuality and being able to express your opinion without being jumped on by other people. Safety is necessary within our nervous system in order to heal. So if you're in a stew of trauma and you're not feeling safe, you're not going to be able to heal. That is a deep stress on a primal level. So the First Amendment, our right to speak, our right to free speech is essential. And your right to express yourself how you want, through how you dress, through how you present yourself to the world, is essential as well. You are incredible. Let it shine forward unapologetically, condemning people for being themselves, being unforgiving of people who might be acting in ignorance, harboring anger and frustration. All of that affects your chemistry. All of that affects your hormones. All of that affects your gut health. And remember that gut and your brain are completely connected. So yes, it is vital that we protect our First Amendment rights. And it is atrocious that in the UK, people are being arrested for social media posts. And while it's understood that the motivation is to protect people's feelings and to keep safety, ironically, the question comes down to who is the arbiter of the truth. And the government stepping in saying, well, we're the arbiter of truth, when they have special interest groups paying them left and right, paying them into the millions and the billions, then what we're doing is we're allowing the special interest groups to dictate the truth. So what I propose is that we lean into our beautiful, unique individuality, and we drop this idea of identity politics and assuming that someone has to feel a certain way because they look like they fit a certain stereotype, and rather understand that we're each unique and we should be taken for who we are and where we are, because we're always growing, we're always changing, and it's unfair to pinpoint someone down when they're actually on a journey of growth as well. You know, it's like we need to treat ourselves and we need to treat the people that we meet as if they have something written on their forehead, not just make America healthy again, but instead maybe it says, I need love. I need to be heard. So with that, what I'm about to show you is Matt Taibbi talking to the House Judiciary Committee on the censorship industrial complex. If you don't know Matt Taibbi, he's the one that released the Twitter files along with Michael Schellenberg and Barry Weiss. He's an award-winning journalist and author and was a longtime political editor for Rolling Stone magazine. When Taibbi, Weiss, and Schellenberger released the Twitter files, they were dismissed as being so-called journalists, when these are people at the top of their profession. In any case, this is from yesterday. Let's hear what Taibbi has to say.
2 years ago, when Michael and I first testified before your Weaponization of Government subcommittee, Democratic members called us so-called journalists, suggested we were bought-off scribes, and questioned our ethics and our loyalties. When we tried to answer, we were told to shut up, take off our tinfoil hats, and remember two things. One, there is no digital censorship, and two, if there is digital censorship, it's for our own good. I was shocked. I thought the whole thing had to be a mistake. There was no way the party that I gave votes to my whole life was now pro-censorship. Then last year, I listened to John Kerry, whom I voted for, talk to the World Economic Forum. Speaking about disinformation, he said, quote, our First Amendment stands as a major block to our ability to, quote, hammer it out of existence. He complained that it's really hard to govern because people self-select where they go for their news, which makes it, quote, much harder to build consensus. Now, I defended John Kerry when people said he looks French, but Marie Antoinette would have been embarrassed by this speech. He was essentially complaining that the peasants are self-selecting their own sources of media. What's next, letting them make up their own minds?
For real, that needs to be like really listened to. This is not 1984. Our individual thoughts are important. Critical thinking is important. And the dialogue back and forth is important.
Lastly, building consensus may be a politician's job, but it's not mine as a citizen or as a journalist. In fact, making it hard to govern is exactly the media's job. The failure to understand this is why we have a censorship problem. This is an Alamo moment for the First Amendment. Most of America's closest allies, as both Rupa and Michael have pointed out, have already adopted draconian speech laws. We are surrounded. The EU's new Digital Services Act is the most comprehensive censorship law ever instituted in a Western democratic society. Ranking Member Raskin, you don't have to go as far as Russia or China to find people jailed for speech. Our allies in England now have an online safety act which empowers the government to jail people for nebulous offenses like false communication or causing psychological harm.
And over the summer, they released hundreds, if not thousands, of violent criminals released from prison to make room for people who did Facebook offenses. And I'm not even talking about serial Facebook offenses. I'm talking about a one-time comment that maybe seemed inappropriate to someone. No, we don't want to be rude to people. No, we don't want people to be hurt by other people online. But there are some things that are more important, such as not allowing a single system to become the arbiter of truth. We need to be able to forge our own way forward through dialogue and through our own individuality.
Germany, France, Australia, Canada, and other nations have implemented similar ideas. These laws are totally incompatible with our system. Some of our own citizens have been harassed or even arrested in some of these countries, but our government has not stood up for them. Why? Because many of our bureaucrats believe in these laws. Take USAID. Many Americans are now in an uproar because they learned about over $400 million going to an organization called Internews, whose chief, Jeannie Bourgeot, boasted to Congress about training hundreds of thousands of people in journalism, but her views are almost identical to Kerry's. She gave a talk once about building trust and combating misinformation in India during the pandemic. She said that after months of a really beautifully unified COVID-19 message, vaccine enthusiasm rose to 87%. But when, quote, mixed information on vaccine efficacy got out, hesitancy ensued. We're paying this person to train journalists, and she doesn't know that the press does not exist to promote unity or political goals like vaccine enthusiasm. That's propaganda.
And that is a major problem. And it's a major problem when the media is bought out by Big Pharma. Again, that gets in the way of the actuality. It makes you doubt your incredible chemistry set of a body and doubt that your connection to nature and whole real foods and to the earth and to each other is actually what's going to cause you to heal and thrive and not have a jillion side effects from being on prescriptions.
Not journalism. Bourgeot also once said that to fight bad content, we need to work really hard on exclusion lists or inclusion lists and, quote, really need to focus our ad dollars toward what she called the good news. Again, if you don't know the fastest way to erode trust in media is by having government sponsor exclusion lists, you shouldn't be getting $1 in taxpayer money, let alone 476 million of it. And USAID is just a tiny piece of the censorship machine Michael and I saw across that long list of agencies. Collectively, they've bought up every part of the news production line: sources, think tanks, research, fact-checking, anti-disinformation, commercial media scoring, and when all else fails, straight-up censorship. It is a giant closed messaging loop whose purpose is to transform the free press into exactly that consensus machine. There is no way to remove this rot surgically. The whole mechanism has to go. Is there right-wing misinformation? Hell yes. It exists in every direction. But I grew up a Democrat and don't remember being afraid of it. At the time, we figured we didn't need censorship because we thought we had the better argument. Obviously, many of you lack the same confidence.
And that is the point. If you're standing in integrity, then you don't need to be lying. If what the media is putting forward is truth or a well-rounded perspective that's not based in propaganda or funding from a special interest group, then you don't need to lie. You don't need to censor, because the truth should speak for itself. And what that does is it facilitates them selling us the things that are making us sick and then selling us the prescription to make us better. But we're not better. We're not ever better unless that healing is actual and from a place of integrity, unless we're actually healing the cells of our body.
You took billions of dollars from taxpayers and you blew it on programs whose entire purpose was to tell them they're wrong about things they can see with their own eyes. You sold us out. And until these rather tiresome questions are answered, this problem is not fixed. Thank you.
Controlling what we think, how we communicate, and our information is one powerful way of controlling society. This is from the older millennial on TikTok.
We are all willing to work with anyone who's serious about doing the work of censoring the American people and advancing progress.
That was the Democrat representative from the state of Massachusetts and member of the squad, Ayanna Pressley. And yeah, you heard her correctly. She is willing to work with anyone who wants to advance the cause of censoring the American people in the name of advancing progress. I'm not putting words in her mouth. That's exactly what she said. And the weird thing is, if you try to look up that statement on mainstream media, you won't find it on CNN, you won't find it on MSNBC, you won't find it on PBS, CBS, you won't even find it on Fox News. Just mainstream media is pretending she didn't say that. They're just acting like it didn't happen. But thankfully, the internet is forever. Thank you so much, Representative Pressley, for saying the quiet part out loud.
So, yeah, it's very important that we maintain our ability to have free speech, but it's also very important that we recognize that we need opposing opinions and that we need to be respecting each other through those opposing opinions. You could be mad at someone and still love them. You can love someone and not really like them, but we need to be in a place of not hating each other for having opposing views, especially since there's one part of the system that is constantly pushing one idea and one narrative. We need to realize that that's not the global truth. But most importantly, we need to be living in this place of alignment, connecting within our gut lining, connecting to the earth, to each other, and to faith. And this is what's going to cause us to thrive. All right, you beautiful human being, use those links below to get to my Amazon store. Everything there supports anti-inflammatory nutrition and anti-inflammatory lifestyle. Hey, if you like what you're seeing so far, please give a thumbs up and please subscribe. Let's grow this channel so that I can have some awesome interviews. I do have people lined up, but I need to have a grown channel first. Who you are matters. Your individuality matters. Living from a place of authenticity, a place of integrity is going to feel so good. You will heal and you will thrive. Most importantly, remember who you are and make it a great day.